My name is Jeff Lerner, founder of Entra, author of Unlock Your Potential, the ultimate guide to creating your dream life in the modern world, and host of the Unlock Your Potential podcast. Today on the show, we're going to talk about how to thrive in a broken system rather than be a casualty of it. Today, we'll talk about, first, should you lead like Oprah or General Patton? Second, how to make sure that you're leading yourself so you are fit to lead others. And third, why $10 million is the new $1 million.
Welcome back to Leadership and Loyalty with our special guest, Jeff Lerner, in this delicious conversation about the broken system and how you can actually do well and getting outside of it and really tap into your potential, but not in the way that you normally think about potential, in a potential that is about seeing beyond the system that you're in. As I said, Jeff Lerner is the founder of Entra Institute. It's the world's fastest institute of higher learning for entrepreneurs. It's now one of the fastest growing educational technology companies in the world. He's also the host of Unlock Your Potential podcast. And on top of that, he's author of a brand new book called Unlock Your Potential, the ultimate guide to creating the dream life in the modern world. Now, for whatever reason, you may be listening to this in 2028, whenever you're listening to it. You may be listening to this in 2022. If the book is not there on Amazon or wherever it is you're going to buy it from, you can pre-order it and you can grab a hold of it. And I highly recommend you do. And we were talking before we started recording that there's also going to be an audio version of it too. All right, let's come back to Jeff Lerner. Jeff, we were talking about at the beginning when we started, we were talking about this broken system and people buying into it and ignoring the fact that most people are ending up broke when they retire, so they can't actually retire. And as you were saying, Walmart only needs so many greeters. So let's talk about somebody's listening to the show. They're 50 plus. They've got a decent job, but they realize they're not in the place where they can actually retire. How do they, what is the step now? Okay, they go, all right, I'm waking up in a realization that I've been living in the matrix of this broken system, but I'm 50 plus, man. What do I do? I mean, I don't want to get out of a system that I'm already in.
Yeah, it's a tough question, and to be fair, a one-size-fits-all answer is hard to come by. That's one of the reasons that Entra, we don't just sell courses. We have every person that comes through our doors gets assigned to an advisor. We have a process called success DNA mapping, where we kind of break apart their personality and their quantitative attributes and money and energy and time and interests. And we got to carve a specialized path for each person. But that said, this is a one-to-many medium, so I'll try to give the big answer. I really believe you have to look at your situation. And first of all, if there's a way in your current situation that you can upskill, qualify for a promotion, like if there's a way with, to rock the boat as little as possible, by all means, go for it. Like, I'm not saying quit your job first, ask questions later at all. No. But you got to be, I just think people need to, kind of have that reset in their mind of like, okay, if I'm 50 plus, is there a way that I can at least get to that maybe $300,000 to $500,000 a year earning bracket for the rest of my career? Mm-hmm. And knowing that, let's assume we hold between 6 and 8% inflation, whatever amount of money you would need to retire today, if we average 7% inflation, that number is going to double in 10 years. Yes. So if it's 4 million today, it's going to be 8 million in 10 years. So if you're 55, it's going to be, and I think we are looking at high single-digit inflation for a period of time. I mean, the United States government created 25% of the entire money supply in the last 20 months.
Yes.
By the time that trickles down through the economy, like, prices go up. They didn't create any new value. They just created a whole bunch more dollars, right? So, yes. So, let's call that option A, is like, is there something I can do to upskill or up level in my current role to get to where I could at least have a high single digit 7-figure net worth by the time 65 comes? If not, I think you have to get aggressive about developing what I call, basically it's some sort of real estate. And for most people, I actually mean what I call digital real estate. Which is internet based. It's not physical real estate. Like,
No.
if you have $500,000 to play with liquid, then I think there's some things you can do or more. I think there's some things you can do in physical real estate that can probably get you there in 10 or 15 years. I'm really big on vacation rentals right now. I'm actually actively developing a portfolio of vacation rentals, and the return on investment you get with the vacation rental arbitrage is pretty amazing. And there's even some ways you can do it without having to acquire the properties, right? You just go sign a commercial lease for $2,000 a month and turn around and sublease it by the night for $5,000 a month, right? And you can do that. So physical real estate, like, it takes real cash to do it well.
Yes.
And there's a saying, you can't cross a river using the law of averages. If you're 6 feet tall and you say, oh, well, the average depth is 5 feet, that's great. But if there's a hole that's 9 feet, you're going to drown. And that's where a lot of people get into with real estate, is they're like, well, I'm kind of playing the numbers, but it only takes
that's
one
what happened
property.
in 2008, right?
Yeah. It only takes one property with one, and I'm speaking from experience, with one hailstorm that blows the roof off. And now you have 9 tenants in an apartment that are all suing you because there's no roof on their building. And you're like, your entire portfolio can hang in the balance because of one inclement experience. And so physical real estate can be dicey if you don't have a lot of cushion. And you don't want to get in a situation where you're betting on the willingness of banks to keep the leverage flowing, because banks, they tighten up and they don't give you a warning. And so for most people, I think it's digital real estate. My book talks a lot about this. And look, you can go build a 12, and it has its own challenges, to be clear. We can talk about them if there's time, but you go get a $12 domain, you go register some social media profiles for free, you go install a WordPress site, you're $100 in, and you can go build. I'll use myself as an example. 3.5 years ago, September 2018. So it'll be 4 years in a few months. I had one credit card with a $20,000 limit. And really, as an experiment, not even an experiment, as a proof of concept, I went onto the internet and I said, I'm going to build a business with this credit card with $20,000. That business did $52 million in sales last year in its second full calendar year. You can do that. You can go from a $20,000 investment to a $100 million business in less than 5 or 10 years, leveraging the power of the internet if you get really, really good at these skills. Now, let me say one thing that is a universal truth that I don't think people love to embrace, but I think we're all better off if we do. There's a difference between probability and possibility. There's a difference between the odds according to the math and the odds according to the man. And probability says that everything I say is a bad idea. And the odds, according to math, say that nothing I say is likely to work out. And 2 is the number of shits that I give about what the probability says, because you can be better than the odds. It's just how the only people that win in life are people that are better than the odds, work harder, care more, be more persistent, have higher belief, develop better skills. Like 90% of your competition falls away according to any single variable if you just get great. Get great at 3 or 4 variables and you virtually have no competition. And that's just how, I didn't make the rules, but a review of all of human history shows that's how the world works. So don't fight it. It's like Grant Cardone says, be great. It's the only thing that pays.
So let's go to something here that is sort of looming on the horizon, psychologically, about what we're speaking about, because obviously we're talking about getting out of a broken system. We're talking about becoming financially stable. But as I mentioned in the first half of the show, we have become a society that is very driven by money, and there's no doubt that we need money to live in our world. But if that's the primary driver, if that's the only thing that matters, it's not going to take long before your life is pretty miserable. Yes, you may be miserable and more comfortable than somebody who's poor. I'll give you that. But that's pretty empty. And I know you had a turning point in your life because you were very much on that money bandwagon. What was the turning point in your life, in your leadership, in your business philosophy? And just talk to us a little bit about that so we understand that.
I really appreciate, frankly, you kind of course correcting this conversation, because I am, and I've been in the studio recording the audiobook version of my book. So I've been like verbalizing all these numbers and this data into a microphone for about 25 of the last 200 hours of my life. So they're heavy on the brain, but no, you're totally right. Elon Musk says you get paid in direct proportion to the complexity of the problems that you solve. And another way of saying that, I think, is that your bank balance reflects the value that you provide to the market or to the universe, right? And I had this epiphany really at the same time I launched that experiment, that $20,000 experiment, right? And it was like, I was at a point in my career where I had made good money, but I wasn't filthy rich. I think I was on the cusp of what I would consider to be comfortable and able to retire. Now, granted, I was 39 years old, so I was ahead of most, but I wasn't like about to go buy an island and get there on my yacht. And so I kind of went out there and I was like, okay, I'm actually going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to stop quoting Zig Ziglar about, if you help enough people get what they want, then you'll get everything you could possibly want. I'm going to stop quoting him and I'm going to start living him. I'm actually going to do it. Finally, for once, better late than never, I'm going to truly be a person of service. Mm-hmm. And this whole experiment started with me going out to the internet, and basically what I used that $20,000 for was to pay to push the highest value content that I could come up with to create. It was lessons on personal growth. It was lessons on business. It was lessons on marketing. It was lessons on how I saw the world shifting. It was just everything I could think of that I thought could be of value to the person who's trying to get ahead in this world. And I spent my own money to start boosting it into the feeds of millions of people. So I was just paying Facebook to show these videos to more people, and they weren't asking for anything. There was no course, there was no book, there was no podcast. There was just a guy with advice. Mm-hmm. And what I found is, man, it really works. When you just start putting yourself on the line to serve and to give value as to a degree way beyond what most people consider reasonable. That's one thing I hope people take away from me wherever I go, whenever I speak, is that like, there's nothing reasonable at all about being reasonable. The only reasonable thing is to be completely unreasonable, right? Like people say, oh, make some videos and put them online. I made 600 videos in my first 9 months. Other people make like 6 and they think they've done something. And I spent my own money to boost them out there. And I built up this audience of people that were like, man, this guy's really trying to help. And that gave me the platform to be able to launch this education program, Entre, that's taken off like wildfire. But it really started from a place of, what is the biggest problem that I could tackle, which I consider to be the broken system itself and the systemic miseducation and misinformation around it that keeps people stuck inside it. That's the biggest problem that I felt like I had some wherewithal to help people solve. And how hard am I willing to go into solving it? And basically committing to being the change you want to see in the world. And that's what I did. And what I've now, having shepherded thousands of people through a process of themselves breaking out of the system and converting into a more entrepreneurial life, where they get to start to call their own shots and actually have a shot at a fertile retirement. That's the essence of that shift, is to go from trading my time for money to trading value for money, and to holding myself to a ruthless and exacting standard of value, meaning it's only valuable if it's valuable to them. The fact that it feels valuable to me is completely meaningless. It only has value if it's of value to the recipient or the person on the other end of the exchange. And when you hold yourself to that standard and you accept, not only am I unlikely to earn a single dollar unless I'm providing value, I don't even deserve a single dollar. When your life changes around that axis, everything becomes terrifying, but also everything becomes possible.
So what, like, so you know, again, you know, you've been entrepreneurial, 2008 comes, you got massive debt, you pull yourself out of that, you know, you're building yourself up, you launch this, this experiment, this confirmation of concept. But what brought about that change? What brought about that realization that the gig's up? I'm spouting the right words, but I'm not really. I'm kind of out of integrity here. I'm quoting Zig Ziglar, but I'm full of shit. So
yeah, it was. I'll tell you what it was. It was a whole lot of therapy.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was. I got married, or I got divorced when all, hell broke loose around me, like you talked about, 2008. A couple of years later, I met amazing woman. She had three kids. She was a widow with 3 kids, and I fell in love with her. I fell in love with her kids, and I moved across the country. Decided I'm gonna plunk down and try to make a life here. And we started going to therapy very early on because we recognized that there was a lot of complexity to integrating me in with her and the kids. And just, we both had failed marriages in our past and we knew how badly things could go. And it's like, let's bring in some help. Right. And we got real into therapy. I mean, and I'm a little bit obsessive. I taught myself to be a professional piano player in 3 years, starting at 16 years old, practicing 12 to 14 hours a day. I'm just that kind of guy, right? And when I say I started going to therapy, I mean, I had a session every week. She had a session every week, and we had a together session every week. And we enrolled in a group that met for 4 hours once a week. And we started going to a class. There was an inner sentence class. There was a parenting class. I would say in my first 5 years of therapy, I probably did, I don't want to say 10,000 hours, but I wouldn't be surprised if I did 5,000 hours in some sort of therapeutic environment. Plus, the other thing about therapy is, and anybody that's been knows this, but 99% of people never do it. They give you homework, and then you go home and you don't do it. And our therapist to date, he'll tell you that in 40 years of practice, me and my wife were the most diligent students that he's ever had. And it was many, many thousands of hours of painful, awkward, clumsy, gut and heart-wrenching therapy that finally reached me to a point or brought me to this place where feeling peace was more valuable than any asset on earth could have possibly been.
Yes.
And that was when I realized that you can never feel peace if you don't live in integrity. And and that was the catalyst for the experiment. I actually sold my business and took pennies on the dollar for what it was worth, because I was just so ready to hit the reset button and live a life that, for better, for worse, pass, fail, whatever, I knew I'd be proud of.
Yeah, it's it's fascinating to me. You and I talked about this in previous conversation, but it's fascinating to me that so many people are so afraid of therapy because it's going to reveal something about you don't want to look at, and that is true.
Yeah.
Let's not deny that. You are going to see shit you've been in denial of. That's all there is to it. But that stuff is clouding everything you're doing in your life, and it's pulling back. It's got your foot on the brake while you're trying to accelerate on everything.
Yeah.
And that drive is is really you're trying to succeed in most cases, not always, but mostly, and certainly, and I work with some very high level individuals. That drive to have an incredible level of success is so that I don't have to look at it. And there'll come a point you may have reached that enormous success, which I can have enormous respect for, but you'll come to a point where you go, oh, all right, now guess what? The poo pile got bigger.
Yeah.
So, I think that, and sometimes we need a catalyst. And so your catalyst was the meeting your bride and the realization. And by the way, I've not met too many people who did what my wife and I did, which is very early on, I said, I was 39 years old, and I'm like, yeah, not interested. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, unless we do therapy, unless we do couples work right from the start, I'm not in. And she's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Right. And we went to therapy, within a month. We went as a couples therapy. We took couples trainings. We went to individual therapy, just like you talked about, read all
Amazing.
the books,
Yeah.
did the homework, and we teach a relationship program that we work with high level executives and their partners on one for that reason, because it is an awakening to, if I'm going to be in a relationship that I really care about, I got to get out of the way. I being the parts of me that don't work.
Yeah.
And then you go, and this is the thing that you and I had talked about before, and then you realize, oh, that's what I was doing in the relationship. Oh, that's what I'm doing in business.
Yes.
Oh, that's what I'm doing in relationships with the people I work with. Oh, that's what I'm doing with my customers. Oh, guess what? I'm the common denominator.
Yeah.
Oh, duh. All right. And then your life explodes. Then your business explodes. Then you start to really be of service.
Yeah. And improving as a husband or wife, obviously, I mean, it works, but as improving as a father will also improve you as a leader. It will also improve you as a team builder. It will also improve you as a strategic decision maker. It will also improve you as an optimist who's just more unflappable in business in general. Like the common denominator that my businesses in the last 5 years have had, which was my agency, which is what I sold, and then ultimately this business, is people talking about how it felt to work there. And in my agency, even we actually had a relationship locally here with what's called the drug court, which is a work release program for drug offenders.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't get jobs. So they need companies that will actually employ people who get out on early release for drug offenses. And we had a relationship with them where we became one of the preferred places in our town for people in drug court to come work, because we had such an emphasis on human potential and personal growth. And it just felt good. And frankly, what is it that drug addicts need? Honestly,
Community.
they need unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hole that they're trying to fill with the stimulant or the whatever, the chemical. And I build work environments where you know that you're loved. You may not even last. We may have to fire you if you don't perform, but even on the way out, you'll know that you were loved. Yes. And what you bring out of people when they just suddenly they don't feel like there's some secret, game of brinksmanship where you're really out to get them and you're trying to get every ounce you can out of them, pay them as little as possible. Like when they know that you see the best in them and that's what you're a stand for every day when they come to work. And if they need a day off because they need to go be a good parent and do the right thing, you clap for them for taking that day off and having the guts to ask. Not, well, secretly, I'm going to go talk about you in the next room and, oh, she's been missing a lot of work lately. I mean, obviously, we all have a business to run, but like, why are we really doing this? If you're not in business to amplify and grow human beings, please do the world a favor and get out of business.
It's really interesting. I had a very good conversation with a very good friend of mine. And we've said, we believe that people have lost faith in religion. We believe that people have lost faith in government. And we believe that people have lost faith in business because of cronyism.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know, we believe we can change the world one vote at a time. I'm not sure about that anymore. Not with redlining, not with all the corruption that goes on in politics. I'm not sure we can. I'm not sure it can happen with religion. But I am sure that if we decide to do it with business, we can do it with business. We can change the world from business. We can really make the emphasis on human beings and growing human beings. And it doesn't mean you don't have to be profitable. It means you can actually make that part of the growth.
Yeah.
And that's a really
Can
important
I
thing.
just declare, as far as I know, I have the fastest growing and maybe the most successful non-venture backed bootstrapped ed tech startup in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I want anybody hearing me to know these are not just nice ideas. These are ridiculously valuable and profitable ideas. Okay.
Yes.
Year one, we did $1 million. Year two, we did 14. Year three, we did 52. This year, our goal is to double that again. This shit works.
Yeah.
Love people and
people.
watch how they show up for you.
Jeff, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much. Really appreciate all that you've shared with us and with our listeners. Before we finish, I want to ask you. Going to ask you two things. One, I'm going to ask you to make sure that people know how to reach you and find out about Entra and all the other things that you're doing, especially the book. But before I do that, what's the one sort of absolutely practical thing that somebody can do to integrate what it is you've been talking about, you know, that they can go do right away? What's the one thing they can do besides read past that chapter in your book?
Right. Yeah, I think it's to really embrace the notion that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And that if you're showing up to work and you're out of shape trying to lead people, you're a hypocrite because you're showing that you can't lead yourself. If you're showing up to work asking for people to care, but you're not being caring, you're a hypocrite because you don't have emotional regulation and yet you're asking for them to have some level of discipline in how they show up to work. Like how it's all an integrated set of you as a human being. And we teach something in Entra called the 3 Ps: physical, personal, and professional. And if any one of, and physical, I think we all kind of know what physical is, right? It's body and mind and how you take care of yourself. Personal, it's all about thoughtfulness in relationships. How do people feel? And then, and only then, we put them in that order. Physical, lead yourself first. It's like that general that said, make your bed every morning. You can't even make your bed. Who are you to lead, right? Well, if you can't get up and go to the gym, come on, who are you kidding, right? And then, how do you lead the people in your world? If you have friction at home and you're showing up, you're a tyrant under your own roof, and you think that people can't feel that energy, that's like the guy that smokes and thinks other people can't smell it.
Yeah.
Right? How you do one thing is how you do everything, and hold yourself to that standard, or accept life for what it is, which is something that's not going to go that well for you, and don't complain about it.
Fabulous. All right. Tell our listeners, our viewers, where they can find out more about you, about the book, and about all the wonderful resources that you have.
So if you just search Jeff Lerner on any social platform, I'm going to be the first person to come up. The actual handle is Jeff Lerner Official. I love when people check out my YouTube channel because there are, at this point, over 1,000 videos, hundreds of hours of free training that anybody that wants to can go through that don't cost a dime. Entra is the world's first life design platform. So if you're looking for a place where you can grow your professional skills, but in an environment that really challenges you to also grow as a whole person, that's what Entra is. And honestly, I work really hard to just be a Google search away. So in the book and the podcast, I'm sure you'll put the links in the description. Wherever people find me, I'm working hard to serve at a high level, and I'm grateful.
Fabulous. Thank you. Well, of course, we'll make sure that all those links are published inside of the podcast, so you'll be able to find anything and everything about Jeff. whether it's through the usual places you listen to podcasts or whether it's on our YouTube channel, where, of course, we will release the video. And you can hang out with other conscious leaders and you can chat about this episode or any past episodes inside of our Facebook or LinkedIn groups. Jeff, it's been a pleasure and honor. Thank you, sir. We really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Duff.
And for you, dear listener, remember, it doesn't matter how successful you are. If your employees and your customers don't understand what really gives your company meaning, you're only working at a fraction of your true capability. To find out how you can hire me, Dov Baron, as a speaker or a leadership strategist for yourself or your organization, simply go to dovbaron.com. That's DOVBARON.com, because unified actualized meaning is the one single monolithic difference between mediocrity and greatness for all individuals and companies. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about how you can get out of the broken system by serving at a higher level. Really, grow yourself as a human, grow yourself as a business. Everything changes when you change. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deepest meaning to reach the next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.